Your fence is lying to you. Right now, it's just standing there holding up nothing but air, and you've been walking past it for years, like it's not the single biggest untapped growing space on your entire property. Here's what nobody in the gardening world wants to admit. Raised beds and ground rows are the slow, expensive way to grow food. The real production happens straight up. A vine climbing a trellis doesn't fight your tomatoes for soil, doesn't need a new bed dug, doesn't ask you for anything except something to hold on to. It takes the empty vertical space, the fence line, the porch post, the ugly chain link nobody looks at twice, and turns it into a wall of food. The 9 plants on this list explode out of the ground fast, hand you a real harvest in their very first summer, and several of them never need to be planted again. This is the difference between a garden you have to rebuild every March and one that just keeps showing up. Let's get into it. 1. The cucamelon. If every plant you've ever owned has died on you, start here, because this thing is nearly impossible to kill. People call it a Mexican sour gherkin, and it's been grown in Central America for centuries, but what it actually produces is a grape-sized fruit that looks like someone shrunk a watermelon down to a thumbnail and then filled it with cucumber and lime. Start the seeds inside about a month before your last frost, then move them out once the ground has warmed up. From there, the vine takes off, climbing 10 to 12 feet with almost no input from you, and a single plant on one trellis can hand you well over 100 little fruits in a season. Do the math on that against what these sell for at a farmer's market, and a $2 seed packet starts to look like a joke. But here's the part most people never find out. Underground, the plant is quietly building a tuber. In zone 7 and warmer, just leave it where it is, and it comes back bigger the following spring. Farther north, dig it up before frost, keep it somewhere cool and dry over winter, and replant it. Leave it alone for a couple of seasons, and it turns into a low-effort, high-output plant that basically pays for itself forever. Drop your zone in the comments. Knowing it before you plant saves you from picking things that were never going to survive where you live. And hit subscribe, because I'm calling out the right zone for every plant on this list. 2. Tromboncino squash. You already know the heartbreak your zucchini looks incredible in June and is a collapsed, rotting mess by July. That's the squash vine borer, and it kills more summer squash than any disease ever could, because it drills straight into the plant's hollow stem and eats it from the inside. Tromboncino doesn't have that weak point. Its stem is solid and dense the whole way through, so the borer physically can't get in. While the neighbors are pulling out dead vines, this one is still climbing, easily covering 30 feet or more of fence line in full summer heat without slowing down. One healthy vine can produce 15 to 25 long, curling, trumpet-shaped fruits that hang clean in the air instead of sitting in the dirt. Pick them young, around a foot long, and they're sweeter and crisper than any zucchini you've had. Leave them out there into fall, and the skin toughens up into a proper winter squash you can store for months. Same plant, 2 completely different harvests, and it's basically borer-proof the entire time. 3. Malabar spinach. Regular spinach gives up the second summer gets serious. It bolts, turns bitter, and you're left with an empty bed right when you need greens most. Malabar spinach does the opposite. Heat and humidity are basically what it's waiting for, and it will climb a trellis in full sun all the way through to the first frost without complaint. The leaves are thick, glossy, heart-shaped, and carry a peppery bite that actually holds up in cooked dishes instead of wilting into mush. You're looking at your first harvest around 70 days in, and the trick after that is to never stop picking. Every leaf or tip you take triggers the vine to branch out and produce more. Trials have recorded yields around 40 kilograms of leaf from a plot the size of a small patio, which is an absurd amount of greens for that footprint. It won't survive a hard frost, so treat it as an annual outside of warm climates. But it reseeds itself readily, where winters stay mild, and once you've saved seed from it once, you never have to buy it again. 4. Scarlet runner bean. Most people grow this one purely for the flowers, and honestly the clusters of bright orange-red blooms pulling in hummingbirds all summer are reason enough. But almost nobody realizes one vine gives you 3 separate harvests inside of 60 to 75 days. Pick the pods young and eat them like snap beans. Let them fatten up, and you get big, striking purple and black beans for shelling, richer and nuttier than anything from the store. Or leave the same pods to dry fully on the vine, and you've got dried beans for the pantry. 3 harvests, 1 plant. It also fixes nitrogen as it grows, so the bed underneath it comes out richer than it started once you compost the spent vine in winter. In zone 7 and up, the roots are perennial, the top dies back, and it returns on its own in spring. Colder than that, seed is cheap and reliable enough that replanting every year barely counts as effort. Stick around, because the next one doesn't just feed you above the soil, it's got a survival crop hidden underground that's kept entire communities fed through hard winters. 5. Chayote. This one barely gets grown in North America, and it genuinely doesn't make sense why. Because every part of the plant is edible: the fruit, the leaves, the young shoots, the seeds, and a starchy root underneath that gets bigger every year the vine is established. University of Florida figures put a mature vine at covering roughly 30 feet of trellis and producing somewhere in the range of 80 to 100 fruits in a single season. And planting it is strange. In the best way, you don't buy seed. You bury an actual chayote fruit at a slight angle with the tip peeking above soil, and it sprouts from there. The first season is quiet while the roots establish, but by year 2 or 3, one vine can genuinely feed a household. Frost-free climates get a true perennial. Anywhere colder, start it indoors in late winter. Snap the young shoots off through the season, and cook them like asparagus for a bonus harvest you'd never get from the fruit alone. 6. Hyacinth bean, purple-tinted stems, deep violet flowers, and seed pods in a metallic purple that looks almost fake. This vine gets attention before you even mention its food. It's been grown across Africa and Asia as a serious survival crop for thousands of years. In one summer, it can reach 15 feet, maturing in 60 to 90 days, with barely any care. You get 3 harvests off it: young leaves as greens, immature pods cooked like green beans, and mature dried seeds known as semini in Indian cooking for long storage. One important note: the mature dried seeds contain compounds that need a proper long boil before they're safe to eat, which is standard practice everywhere this bean has traditionally been grown. Once boiled, they're fine. The plant itself fixes its own nitrogen, shrugs off drought and heat, and grows in soil most other crops would refuse. Full sun, water once a week until it's established, and it does the rest. 7. American groundnut. This might be the most overlooked food plant native to North America, and its history is hard to overstate. Apios americana produces food 2 ways at once: edible pods above ground, and strings of starchy, protein-dense tubers underground that grow like beads along shallow roots. Indigenous communities relied on this plant for generations, and it's documented that groundnut tubers kept early colonial settlements alive through winters when their crops had failed outright. The vine itself stays modest, 3 to 6 feet, with fragrant pink-purple flowers, and in fall you dig through the loose soil by hand to pull the tubers. It's a true perennial, so once it's in the ground, it comes back every year unassisted, fixes its own nitrogen, tolerates wet soil, and rare for a food crop actually produces in partial shade. It fell out of use simply because that traditional knowledge stopped getting passed down. Specialty native plant nurseries still sell starter tubers, and one planting can keep producing for years. 8. Maypop passionflower. Passiflora incarnata is a native passionflower that's cold hardy down to zone 5, which means you can grow something that tastes genuinely tropical even in a place that gets real winters. The egg-sized fruit ripens from late summer into fall, and inside is a sweet, aromatic pulp that sits somewhere between guava and citrus. It comes back reliably every spring, spreads through its roots, and gets more productive with each passing year. The flowers alone are worth growing it for some of the most elaborate, striking blooms native to North America, and they pull in specialized pollinators that benefit everything else in the yard. The leaves and flowers also contain compounds traditionally used in calming teas. Get a starter plant from a native nursery, give it sun and a fence anywhere in zones 5 through 9, and it asks for almost nothing in return. 9. Akebia. Walk into most nurseries and you'll find this sold under chocolate vine as a purely decorative climber, with zero mention that it fruits. In early autumn, the elongated pods split open to reveal a sweet, translucent pulp with a faint vanilla note, and in Japan, where it's been cultivated for generations, it's treated as a genuine delicacy. It's actually a 3-part harvest: tender young shoots, cooked as a vegetable in spring, the pulp fresh in fall, and the bitter outer skin, traditionally stuffed and fried. Once it's settled in, it can grow 15 to 30 feet in a single season, and it handles partial shade better than almost any other fruiting vine, which makes it the right pick for the shady or north-facing fence nothing else will cover. It's hardy to zone 4, flowers in early spring, and while first fruiting takes 2 to 3 years, the coverage alone in year 1 makes it worth planting. That's the list. Every one of these turns space that's currently doing nothing, a fence, a rail, a bare wall, into food you're not replanting every spring. A traditional bed resets every year. An established vine just keeps producing whether you're paying attention to it or not. Pick a bare fence and start there. That's genuinely the whole first step. If you found even one plant on this list worth trying, that's what this channel's for. Drop your zone in the comments before you go. It's the single easiest way to avoid planting something that was never going to make it where you live, and I'll keep calling out the right zones as we go through these lists. See you in the next one.